Hey all, Grolo here. It's been a while since we just chatted. I've been pretty busy putting together the Hot Buttons and MMO series, which has been pretty well received. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, well, you should. Once that series wraps up, I'm thinking of doing a live chat on the topics to bring everyone else into the conversation, then probably a retrospective of some sorts. It's been a lot of fun, and there's more on the way, so check it out. Also, at the end of this video, I got some small channel updates, so stick around for those or just skip right to them. Up to you. But today I wanted to check in on Star Citizen. Been a lot going on. 4.2 was a bit of a mess. We just had an update on that from Jared. I wanted to respond to the first part of Jared's video and provide some more engineering context on some of what he mentioned. There's been some discussion also on how Star Citizen's funding is a good bit ahead of last year. If you remember, we did a video on that last year. So I'm going to circle back to that. And 4.3 looks to be imminent. By the time this video drops, 4.3 may even be out. So let's dig in. By now, most of you who play Star Citizen have probably experienced the sad state of freight elevators. Let's see what Jared has to say about it. I'm not going to play this whole video. You've probably already seen it. I'll link it below if you haven't and you want to watch the whole thing. I'm just rolling the part that I have some thoughts on and wanted to add to. So let's check it out.
You're here, I'm here, we got one take. Let's talk about the elevator in the room. Now, up until this point, freight elevators were mostly used in single-player, short-term environments like personal hangars. There would usually only be one user, and on the back end, it would be stowed when you left, and a fresh new freight elevator presented every single time you went back in. Now, while certainly not perfect, these tended to operate better than the ones out in the wilderness at, say, outposts, which, like many other things in the verse, tended to compound their issues over time the longer they were left to run. Now, of all the known issues with all the freight elevators in the game, most tend to revolve around simple things like it just doesn't work, and bigger problems like all my items have vanished and they're now lost forever, which itself can often tie into other issues with things like long-term persistence, which we're gonna have an SCL on with Benoit soon to discuss some new developments there. So if it's okay with you, we're gonna stick to freight elevators for the time being.
I can't wait for that. We'll definitely be doing a reaction to that video as soon as it drops. That's the kind of SCL I love. What he's saying about the stowing, though, makes a lot of sense to me. I've seen a lot of criticism and complaining and frustration about these freight elevators, which I totally get. But the fact that the ones in our hangars are stowed and basically reinstantiated into the universe every time we call them, it makes a lot of sense that they would suffer less issues from the ones out in the wild that are not being kind of recreated constantly. Although it seems to me like that might be a pretty trivial fix, although I can think of some complexities around that too, but let's keep going.
Now at this point, I'm not really telling you anything that most active players don't already know. But it's important to note that these issues have been egregious enough that we'd already started a directed repair initiative months ago. It's just not completed yet. Obviously. Maybe super obviously. As with transit, when working these issues, we try really hard to avoid what are known as hack fixes and focus instead on trying to uncover what is ultimately the root cause that will create all this instability underneath. And that process can often seem like absolutely nothing is happening for days or even weeks at a time. So last month, what happened with Race for Stanton? Well, sometimes changing how we use old features can be just as painful as adding a bunch of new ones. With a higher concurrency in daily active users than any patch this year, large numbers of players were driven from their private freight elevators in their personal hangars to the more troublesome ones out in the PU. Statistically rare states became common, and less common issues became fertilized and grew into bigger, unavoidable ones. Although in many cases, this still took hundreds or even thousands of players using each freight elevator to manifest a single issue. Now, like with Transit before it, or the infamous 30K issues of old, who remembers those, the issues you encounter in the PU are not always due to one or two bugs, but often dozens and dozens of underlying conditions beneath and around it, which throwing thousands and thousands of players at have helped us address more successfully than ever before. And since the release of Alpha 4.2.1 and up until the recording of this video, we've identified the root causes of 44 individual freight elevator issues, with 20 of them being classified as blockers or critical, and almost all of them with causes only revealed by running thousands of people into them over and over and over again throughout this event.
Spot on. I mean, this is how things go in software engineering. I know as a kind of a consumer of a product, it's really easy to think that what you're experiencing is probably a simple bug or something like, obviously a freight elevator is just this thing that goes up and down, right? Like, it should be insanely easy to fix whatever bug prevents it from going up and down, but it's always a little deeper than it seems and a little more complicated than it may seem on the surface. And when he mentions statistics, I mean, that's spot on too. Like, you'd probably be surprised that a lot of the services that you use that seem very reliable and stable, just how they can break in very strange ways in edge cases. And these statistical error rates that he's talking about, like these big software companies will track that. There's almost nothing that is completely bulletproof and bug-free. It's just if the failure rate is statistically low enough, you can ignore it. That doesn't mean like some user out there might click play on a YouTube video and it just blows up their browser. That could happen, right? But for you click play a billion times a day and it works just fine. But somewhere, some user clicks that button and it blows up, and now they're having a miserable experience, and they're like, "What the heck?" That's how this stuff starts. But even hardware, like things like hard drives. I don't know what the current failure rates are, but back when I was working in data centers a lot, it was surprising how many hard drive failures you would get a day. And now a typical user at home, they see hard drives as like this super reliable thing. How often does the hard drive in your gaming PC fail on you? You might have had one, two in a lifetime. For the most part, they're pretty rock solid. You never really think about the health of your hard drive. It just works. But whenever you scale up to data center size, that statistical low failure rate becomes a real problem, and you basically have somebody that's their full-time job to run around swapping failed hard drives out. So it's the same thing with the software. It's different, but similar, right? And I also appreciated his call out of the diminished 30Ks. A measurement of progress.
Now, in a phrase that should be very familiar to our software engineer enthusiasts out there, as we work to fix each issue we encountered, the resolution would often reveal another lying in wait underneath.
Yep, we've talked about that before.
This is a good thing, yeah?
The onion.
We did all this intentionally to force progress so we can finally fix freight elevators like we did 30K and are still doing with transit? No. Now, while the project will definitely benefit from what happened long-term with all the fixes and hardening that's been going in and that will continue to go in throughout Alpha 4.3 and beyond, the answer to what really happened isn't particularly exciting or salacious or any different than what I imagine most of you already suspected. We knew there'd be issues like there have been, but we underestimated how they'd compound on top of one another at higher stresses. It's been a sometimes frustrating process for everyone on both sides of the project. But at the same time, we're super proud of the content and cadence we've achieved this year, and of the strides all of our teams are making to make this the most compelling year of Star Citizen gameplay yet. For every single step backwards, I truly believe we're taking multiple strides forward, and the overall improvements to the experience along the way are what keep many of us motivated to continue going month after month. And with this new Onyx Facilities content drop being spread out over multiple releases, we're going to continue taking the time to improve existing experiences along the way. And to that end, as some of you probably have already heard, it was in the loading screen and whatnot, we're also going to go ahead and extend the Race for Stanton missions while we continue to work on freight elevators throughout Alpha 4.3. It'll mean another month for folks to try to dethrone Hurston from the lead they hit so very early, for you to earn any of the individual rewards that are still outstanding, and for us to continue beating on freight elevators about the head and neck with the proverbial pipe along the way. And all while you continue your exploration of ASD's latest malpractices. And speaking of which, we've also made the decision to keep relatively quiet on Onyx facilities in ISC and beyond. We do this to better let you investigate and discover things for yourself.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. I think the rest of this video is going to go into the features for 4.3 and whatnot. It's very easy to criticize what Jared is saying here and discount it and write it off as just, more fluff, or, I've heard and read all sorts of criticisms about this type of messaging from C.I.G, but I can tell you that as a software engineer, all this resonates with me. There's nothing here that I can call bullshit on. It's all the stuff I've been through. You can talk about how it's mismanaged and blah, 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 and if they did that, they wouldn't run into this, but that's not reality. The reality is software genesis is like this. It's messy, it's full of errors and bugs, and we'll get into that more later. I want to run another video, just a few seconds of another video, just to bring this home a little bit.
2024 Chase ATM glitch. Most banking systems run on proprietary code that was written 50 years ago using ancient languages like COBOL. Usually when you deposit a check, it needs a few days to clear before you can withdraw those funds from an ATM. But at JP Morgan Chase, some sort of glitch prevented this safeguard, and tons of viral videos hit TikTok of people withdrawing tens of thousands of dollars that they never had by simply depositing a fake check and then withdrawing money right away. I'm no fan of the banking system, but unfortunately, this also constitutes check fraud. A few days later, these people had bank accounts deep in the red and are now being sued by the bank and may face criminal charges. The AT&T long distance crash of 1990. The cell phones were hardly a thing back then, and if you wanted to communicate with someone outside of your village, you would have to pay for a long distance network. After a software update, a single faulty line of code caused a network switch to crash and automatically reboot. One failed switch is no big deal, but when it would reboot, it would cause neighboring switches to fail as well, resulting in a cascade of failures that took out the entire network. The bug was a C program that included a break statement within an if clause within a switch clause. When a second message was received while the switch was still processing the first, the program dropped out of the if clause prematurely and overwrote crucial data, causing that switch to reset. And this created a domino effect that blocked 50 million calls around the world.
Like I said, software can fail in strange and interesting ways. Believe it or not, the global telecom phone system back in the 80s was probably a simpler system than what C.I.G is building on the back end of Star Citizen. The complexity of systems and platforms and architectures and services has just grown exponentially. And with that kind of complexity comes all kinds of surface areas for very interesting failures. So, good chat from Jared. I was pretty cool for them to put out an update like that. There was nothing in there that stuck out to me as bullshit. Very sane message with clear intent. Now, for those of you who love a good chart, here's what the bug fix chart I shared in previous videos looks like now, a few patches later. As you can see, the upward trend continues. 4.21 was a very fast follow to 4.2, so it should be no surprise that fewer fixes made it in on that one. It's just a matter of time at that point. Only so many bug fixes you can deliver in a day. Now, on to the funding. This graph made its rounds a few weeks ago. At this point, I believe. Clearly, they are well ahead of last year. This doesn't surprise me at all. Let's play a clip of something I said last year, just for context, in case you've forgotten or you've joined recently. The video I said this in was titled, "Why Ship a Game Whenever You Can Sell a Ship?" Let's check it out quick. Now, C.I.G can kind of raise the bar and raise the maximum number of interested people in this game just by improving the state of the alpha, right? They don't have to ship the game. They just have to keep improving the state of the game. Adding features, making it more stable, just as like, we were talking about Netflix, but just as Netflix can, right? Like, if Netflix hits a new show out of the park, their subscribers are going to tick up because they're kind of raising how many people might possibly be interested in the service. Like, maybe someone who was not interested in the service at all before, they now see previews of this new show somewhere and they're like, oh, or they hear a friend talking about it and like, oh my gosh, I gotta have Netflix. I've never had it before, but now I need it. So the important thing there was they can raise the maximum number of interested people just by improving the state of the alpha. And then earlier this year, around 3 months ago, in another video, I said this. So the code that we have in a live build will almost certainly lag behind what the developers have checked in by quite a bit. At this point in April, we're probably seeing code that was delivered in late March. That would be what I would expect. Also keep in mind, it takes a lot to turn a ship the size of C.I.G. Companies of this size are not typically very nimble. The fact that we're already starting to see some results, which we'll talk about in a moment, is honestly a bit surprising to me. I didn't expect to see much of anything consequential until late summer or fall. So this is surprising in a positive way. I was predicting late summer or fall. Here we are. It's late summer. Have things gotten better? Now, I'm sure some of you are going to respond to that question with an emphatic no. But how soon we forget. When I recorded that last clip we just watched, the things I was dealing with daily was falling through planets, getting dropped out of quantum at mesh lines, running out of quantum fuel for no reason. Well, we know the reason. It had to do with state transfer from game server to game server across the mesh. And so much of that is in a much better place now. At least anecdotally for me. I'd love to hear if your experience matches mine. Drop me a comment. Now, of course, we have new problems. The freight elevators, for the love of God, right? Well, guess what? That's going to continue. Probably forever. All the way to 1.0 and probably beyond to some extent. Old issues will be solved. New features or content will land. It'll bring new problems with it. And those will be resolved so that we can experience the next set of problems. And that is called progress. That's software development. We signed up for this whenever we pledged to support the game's development. I don't care how many times you say it's taking too long or the project is mismanaged. It's not, and it's not. I addressed both of these things at length in prior videos. I'll link them below. We're not going to rehash it here. Go watch them. So while I very much appreciate the message from Jared, I didn't find it necessary. It's nice, no doubt. But necessary? Nah. Glad they did it, though. And that brings me back to the two clips I just shared. Yes, things are improving. They are. NPCs are less dumb. They're still a little dumb, but less so. I haven't fallen through a planet in a while. My quantum fuel gets me across the system again. The server lines are slowly becoming less and less noticeable. Playability is objectively increasing. Perhaps not as far as we'd like, but it's higher than at the start of the year, without a doubt, in my mind. And the pledging we saw in that last chart reflects that. When I said all I have to do was improve the state of the alpha to see the numbers tick up, this is what I was getting at. They've had a stream of things come out this year to drive engagement, like Wicklow, Hathor, the Worm, right? Now, I'm going to be honest. Basically, nothing that has come out this year has excited me. It's felt like a content drip, and I'm not here for that. Now, when the next system comes online, I'll get excited. I'm here for the sandbox, for the functional universe. I don't care to go somewhere and fight a worm or a raid boss, right? Or go do missions for some alien. Nah. None of that's my thing. But when engineering comes online, or we start to get a glimpse of crafting or hacking, that's what I'm here for. That's what will excite me. But I don't represent everyone, clearly. I know a lot of people that have been engaging with this content that they're putting out, and I think the uptick in pledging reflects that. I also don't think it hurts that they've had a pretty good cadence on the good ships this year, especially the tech. Not that I'm biased. Go Misk. All right. Aside from that, I got 2 small notes on the channel, and then we're going to wrap this up. One, I turned the channel chat playlist that we've been adding videos into. I've turned it into a podcast on YouTube. It's called Channel Chats with Grolo. Nice and simple. Just involve flipping a few toggles. I'm not really sure what the impact that has on anyone is, but if it helps some listening model, then that's cool. Second, I turned on community posting on my channel page. I don't know when they did this, but YouTube added this feature where, you know, I post community updates like on the post tab. Well, now you all, if you're subscribers, can come in and do your own post on that wall. So I think that's pretty cool. You know, you can just add stuff directly there yourself. If you find something cool, or you want to make a video request, or you just have an interesting topic, drop it there. Now, sadly, as far as I can tell, YouTube only seems to have rolled this out on mobile for now. So I'm hoping we see it on YouTube's desktop experience in the near future. That's what I primarily use. But on mobile, if you go to the channel page, there's like a community button at the top. You can click that, and then you'll see where you can post at. So if you get a chance, check it out. I'd love to see it work. And that's all I got for today. Just a quick check-in. What are you thinking with respect to the state of Star Citizen, the playability, the numbers? What's on your mind with all of this? Do you have a different interpretation of the numbers or the state of the universe or anything else? Are you looking forward to 4.3? If so, why? I'd love to hear about it and all of this, and continue this discussion in the comments below. Until then, Grolo out.